You did make mention of the fact that one of the leaders in the National Unity Platform, and that is the former leader of opposition in Parliament, Mpuuga, having received gratuity of 500 million shillings. And so in a party meeting, you came out and you stated that you're not going to tolerate certain things, corruption being one of those. Neither are you going to offer covering for people who are doing wrong, according to you. Could you explain those words in detail?
Thanks, Priscilla. Good morning, viewers. And maybe before I delve into that, I would like to inform the nation that in the wee hours of last night, we got a call that our comrade Sharon Kemigisha, who has been missing for close to 10 days, has been dumped at the entrance of our office. She tells of horrific stories, but we shall get into that. Just to inform the nation that she has been found. She was dropped by her captors at our office. And yes, this is not my desirable opening topic when I just returned to the country, having proudly made my nation proud, winning numerous awards and forwarding our struggle for freedom and democracy across the world. Coming to that, yes, I returned to disturbing news. Of course, there was a Parliament exhibition that was ongoing on Twitter and all over social media, exposing the rot and the gross corruption and mismanagement at the Parliament of Uganda. In this exhibition, it was not only the case of my Deputy President, the Right Honourable Mpuuga, but you know, it was exposed that the Speaker of Parliament, Madam Anita Among, actually spent more than 3.5 billion shillings on only per diem, not on her salary, but just per diem. She apparently went to Kenya for 30 days, went to Turkey for 30 days, and went to another country for 30 days in 1 month. And all these trips were being facilitated. So imagine 3.5 billion shillings, among others. But yes, it has become a modus operandi for NRM. Corruption is their currency, and the nation, very unfortunately, is no longer alarmed when there's a corruption scandal in NRM. But it should be alarming when some of us are involved. So yeah, per that exhibition, we discovered that, you know, our Deputy President and Parliamentary Commissioner, Right Honourable Mpuuga, was involved in a meeting that allocated him 500 billion shillings as a service award. Now, that was disturbing, and that's why I called for a meeting of senior leaders where he admitted to receiving that money, admitted that it was wrong, it does not represent our values, and he apologized to the leadership team. Now, this leadership team consisted of my 4 deputy presidents, the Secretary General, Deputy Secretary General, our spokesperson and leader of opposition, and 2 other respectable senior legislators from our party. Okay. So that is what happened.
So to what was he apologizing for?
He was apologizing for the wrongdoing, for getting involved in what we all agreed was a corruption scheme, for misrepresenting our values. And you know, he indeed said that in hindsight, he realized he should have thought better, and we agreed that, you know, we give him time. He was strongly advised to step down from the commission, and he, in that meeting, accepted, but asked for time to consult his family, his allies, and stakeholders, and he was given 24 hours to do the same. I was tasked in the meeting to keep in communication with my Deputy President on how to proceed. We never wanted to present it to the public in this way. We had requested my Deputy President to set the narrative, to be the first to communicate. And there we would all, you know, we gave him the opportunity to set the narrative so that we all can, you know, communicate after him. Unfortunately, following my personal communication with him, he made it clear that he was not intending to communicate, and he gave me a go-ahead to communicate, and that's what we did.
Okay, we want to first understand, when we say the word corruption, of course I know it's one of the biggest challenges of the current government, the NRM government, and the exhibition did a good job in exposing how much of taxpayers' money goes out there. But in this case, we're looking at monies that are given to the office that he was handling at that time, and it's given to him as a reward for service. Quote unquote, they've called it a service award, but gratuity in dictionary meaning is simply
for clarity
money that is given to a person after or at the end of their employment. And so it's something that he received, perhaps even the current leader is going to be receiving, and that is Honorable Joel Senyonyi. So we want to clarify exactly how does this translate into corruption.
Thank you.
For the National Unity Platform.
For clarity, that is not gratuity. Every leader, every member of parliament receives gratuity, including the Right Honorable Matthias Mpuuga and everybody else. So this is not gratuity. And in the document, it's made clear it is a service award, which is not provided for anywhere in the law. Okay? This was done, by 4 people, 3 NRM commissioners, and Anita Mong and Mpuuga, 5 people actually. It was not a service award. It's not anywhere in the law. And you say this is money that's given to leaders at the end of their service. The Honorable Mpuuga was not even LOP for a year yet. He had not been LOP for a full year when this money was shared among them. This happened only 2 months after Honorable Zake had been kicked out of the commission. And Honorable Zake had always been raising an issue that is being kicked out of the commission because it's exposing this gross mismanagement. Of course, now it's finally coming out. But it was immoral, and for us, it's more of a moral question. Well, we can go into the legalese, but I don't want to look so much at the legalese because Priscilla, that even slave trade was legal. Not everything legal is right. I mean, some writers said that good people don't need laws to guide them to do what's right. And bad people can find a way around any law. They can even legislate about wrongdoing. But even then, this is not anchored anywhere in the law. I want to make it clear that this is not gratuity, because gratuity is paid, and all of them are going to be paid. Now, the taxpayer is in a situation where they are shouldering gratuity for all these MPs and commissioners, and also a service award.
Okay. Let me pretend this is 2026. The elections are done and dusted, and you have gone through as president. How would you handle this kind of expenditure in government as far as public funds are concerned?
First, we made it even clear in our 2021 manifesto that we shall run a lean government, to make sure we cut down unreasonable government expenditure. You see how our economy is struggling. You see that the biggest problem in Uganda is prioritizing things. Now the priority is rewarding leaders so that they can sing praises for the regime. That's why there's so much. The parliament is now a clearing house. Politics is the most lucrative business. It shouldn't be like that. And in our leadership, that should be different. But most importantly, like I said, we should fight corruption, not only in words, but in action.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of actions, you took action and you made recommendations. One of the recommendations is that that money be returned, of which the Honorable Matthias Mpuuga says he has not even yet received it. The other recommendation you make is that he must relay an apology to Ugandans, the taxpayers' money, to which, of course, that is picked from to give him that service award. And then also 3, you asked him to step down from the commission. Are these the best solutions for the party right now, when we're seeing political divide even within the opposition parties?
Thank you. Priscilla, if I must make it clear, I want you to know that I have no personal problem with my deputy president. I am the one that proposed his name to be appointed as deputy president. I appointed him as deputy president. I appointed him as leader of opposition. And I also appointed him as Commissioner for Parliament, of course, with confirmation from the National Executive Committee. You know, he's a leader that I personally held and would love to continue holding in very high regard. He's so competent in many other ways, and I only wish he can do the moral thing even now. Now, we are the people that have been castigating the Museveni regime for corruption and immorality. We have castigated Museveni for rewarding 42 people with 6 billion as a service award. You remember the experts that we were told saved Uganda from a loss of 2.8 trillion, and therefore General Museveni rewarded them with 6 billion. Now these were 42 people, but we all in unison criticized them, including the Honorable Mpuuga. These people did not even get half of what he got. But because they were being paid, the taxpayer was paying them to do their job. So why should they be given extra billions for, you know, what extra work did they do? But putting that aside, we must be seen to represent the values that we stand for. I never at all wanted this matter to go in the public domain, and we did not take it to the public domain. We found it there. We just decided to address it. There have been so many allegations, not only against the Right Honorable Mpuuga, but against many other leaders. And indeed, we have held many private meetings and have cautioned the leaders about all these, you know. But this is a matter that we learned from the public. It happened almost 2 years ago, and it was kept a secret. We all did not do it. I'm pretty close to my deputy presidents, and a matter of such a sum of money, at least I should have been communicated to all the party. But the fact that this was kept a secret, it was disturbing, and we only all came face to face about it when we met in the senior leaders meeting. Yeah.
On the matter of Zake and how the issue was handled, what were your expectations that how should it have been handled by the Honorable Mpuuga?
First, Honorable Zake was illegally kicked out of the Parliamentary Commission. This has been further confirmed by the Court of Appeal. Now, with what happened in the commission later, we can add dots and realize why he was kicked out of the commission, probably because Zake had a big mouth. But that on the side, the way forward should be doing the right thing. You ask why we decided to handle it this way. We pledged to be transparent, and we owed it to the population to be transparent. And I don't want to do things because an election is coming. We want to be doing the right thing, whether an election is coming or is not coming. The time is always right to do what is right, and the right thing should be done. So we strongly believed that the right thing for a moral leader to do when a moral leader finds themselves in such a scandal is to honorably step aside, first to prove that these positions are not about life and death. And of course, when one finds themselves in the wrong, we owe it to the population to apologize to them, to make them know that we don't believe in impunity. That's what should set us aside from the Museveni regime, where a minister steals money meant for TB patients or HIV patients, and the next minute they are promoted simply because they help the president stay in power. It should not be about power. It should be about morality and about what is right.
Okay, if the required asks are not met by the Honorable Mpuuga, he doesn't apologize for the money, it's not returned in when it's received, and then also he doesn't step down, what's the way forward? As the National Unity Platform, how will you handle, what is the next stage of handling this matter?
I know the Right Honorable Mpuuga is a smart man, and I know he really would love to keep his dignity. So I don't want to appear to be coercing him. You know, I respect him. He's still my deputy president as of now. He just has to, one, help himself and also help us and do the right thing, because we owe this to this entire generation. We need to show a moral example. So I believe that my deputy president will look into himself, will look into his conscience and do the right thing. And it's on this note that I actually want to, I've seen a lot of heat on social media. I want to encourage the people on social media to not be abusive to Honorable Mpuuga. Yes, hold him accountable, hold all of us accountable, because we are servant leaders, we are your servants. But don't be abusive, be respectful, and I'm not saying keep quiet. No, hold us to account, but in a respectful way.
Okay. Yeah. Now, speaking of social media, let's talk about the power and the influence that the social mass has in changing the things around them. For example, of course, the parliamentary exhibition that you talk about, but there's other exhibitions and other ways that social media has been influential in opening up the eyes of the leadership of government and causing them to actually take a practical step into matters that should be of service delivery, efficient and effective to Ugandans. So, in your perspective, how powerful is this tool of social media?
Well, like you can hear with social media, the media owned and run by society. Social media has been very helpful. Of course, equally dangerous, but it has been very helpful. My personal desire was to cause a mass awakening. I was greatly inspired by Tupac Shakur, the rapper, who said, I cannot guarantee that I'll change the world, but I'll tell you, I'll spark the mind that will change the world. It is not me that will fix everything, but I want to challenge all stakeholders, and by all stakeholders, I mean all Ugandans, to get involved and own up these matters. You might not be able to go to the street because now this is a brutal regime. You might not be able to walk to the offices of these people, the leaders that make policies for you, that decide everything about your life and well-being, but you have a phone where you can, and I insist respectfully, raise your view and hold these leaders to account. I can guarantee to you that if it was not social media, if it was not that exhibition, we probably wouldn't know this, because it was kept as a nicely kept secret. But social media played a role. Of course, social media is equally dangerous, because a lot of misinformation is carried out on social media. And lately, the regime uses social media to misinform people and disinform people. We have the government citizen, the GCR, something that is being run by the regime, paying hundreds of young people to write falsehoods and to rebut any claim or any social media post that is holding the government, accountable. But that is done by many other dictators. I mean, propaganda started way back in Russia because it's a tool of diverting the population. I'm very glad that we have social media, because these matters, I can guarantee you, would not make their way to mainstream media. The news here is very, very censored, but social media breaks that net.
Okay. Speaking of accountability and governance, expectedly, obviously, we enter into contract with the government every time we go to the ballot and vote. And so we get into contract with the government that has been given power. And accountability is very crucial and key. So what is your perspective on the accountability and transparency as a tool of good governance?
I can tell you this, that the only way leaders are going to be held accountable is when the population is vigilant. Other than that, we are going to go around in circles of corruption. It is the vigilance of the people. It is the people that hold us accountable. It is because of the people, the pressure of the people, that we can, hold even our own accountable. I don't like to be here discussing my deputy president. No, we are supposed to be holding the regime accountable. They steal money in trillions. But here, we must remind ourselves that those who come for justice must come with clean hands. We must be clean in order to have the moral authority to hold these people accountable. Now, imagine a situation where I did not say anything about it. Actually, it was already claimed on social media that this money was shared with me, because when leaders that are under my leadership receive bribes or get involved in corruption and I don't hold them accountable, that literally means that they are doing it on my behalf. The IGG said sometime that all the big fish in corruption hide behind the president, and indeed all land grabbing scandals are followed up to the doorstep of General Museveni. All massive corruption scandals, the Ruboa hospitals and others, are all followed up to the doorstep of General Museveni. There's no way I could allow a corruption scandal be traced up to my doorstep. The people of Uganda are looking at us as the alternative to this corrupt regime. We cannot be seen not to castigate and fight corruption publicly.
Honorable Chagolani, this is not the first time we are seeing such an instance for the National Unity Platform. A while back, still in this 11th Parliament, you do have some members of Parliament having received allegedly 40 million shillings. And you came out rightly to speak against that, and you want that those who subscribe to the National Unity Platform and partook of that portion should, do the same thing. The three things that you mentioned: return it, apologize, and perhaps even step aside or come out outrightly about it. And you still gave them the conditional of 48 hours. After those 48 hours, nothing was done. No follow-up was done by the National Unity Platform. And so it silently went to bed. We are thinking this same situation is also silently going to go to bed.
That's true. There were not only allegations. Initially there were allegations, but I called a similar meeting where I tasked the members of Parliament to explain. Some denied it, but at least two of my MPs in that meeting admitted to receiving that money. That was Twaha Kagabo, that was Tebandeke. And in the meeting, we tasked them to return that money. Twaha Kagabo, and we agreed that that money was going to be returned to the leader of opposition, and the leader of opposition will return it to the speaker who had handed it to them. Twaha Kagabo took back that money to the leader of opposition. Unfortunately, the leader of opposition declined to receive it and tasked him to take it directly back to the speaker. Well, that's not what we agreed in the meeting, but that's what happened. As you saw later on, Twaha Kagabo was co-opted in the regime. He went back on his word, and consequently, he is now with the regime openly. Tebandeke did not return that money, although he admitted to receiving that money. Unfortunately, he did not hold any leadership position in the party, and I don't think he deserves any leadership position in the party with such a record. The only difference is the Honorable Mpuuga is my deputy president and is a commissioner in Parliament, so that is a much more senior leader. For these MPs that were involved in that corruption and bribery, admitted it, but defied the guidance that we gave them, we took them to the population, because that's all we can. We don't have the power to pull them out of Parliament following the court ruling on the rebel MPs. But at least we've always been saying that our power is with the people. For us, we are people power. We can only hold them accountable with the population. And you will definitely see that soon.
The English have a saying, a barking dog seldom bites. We have seen the current regime barking but seldom biting. We have had the president talking about corruption, doing corruption walks, but nothing is actually being done. Through the office of the IGG, brats are smelt, but nothing is really done. And so it's starting to feel and be translated by the masses that you're not biting. And that's what the masses want to see. So the question is, why are you not biting yet?
Thank you, and I'm glad you mentioned that the masses want to see us biting, especially where corruption is involved. I don't want to bite, and I don't think that should be the direct approach. We met in a senior leaders meeting, and the Honorable Mpuuga was advised to do the moral thing and step down. Of course, it's very unfortunate that in his public statement that he released, he completely went from the facts of the meeting, because he seemed to deny that he had admitted to the wrongdoing. He seemed to deny that he apologized for that wrongdoing, and he seemed to also disagree that that statement was from the party, even if I shared it on my official social media handles. We shall, of course, take the process the way it goes. We don't do things without process. This was advising him to step down because that's the right thing to do, but not coercing him. But of course, the party will take the right course, that is the right moral course that we are supposed to take.
Okay. When you speak of advising, you advised him to take on the 3 recommendations that you made. What is the party advising you to do thereafter when those things are not taken into course?
Well, I am going to meet the formal, organ, and that is the National Executive Committee, and present that issue to them. Among the National Executive Committee, we have more junior leaders, and that's why this matter was not presented initially to NEC, because I thought this is a matter that we could discuss as senior leaders of the party and find a solution to.
Okay, all right. Well, we await to see what comes out of the NEC meeting. But again, at the end of the day, and some people on social media are still glaring onto the National Unity Platform. How do they manhandle corruption out of Uganda? But also, speaking of money, we have recently seen money divide up a political party. Once the biggest opposition political party, the Forum for Democratic Change, being torn between the lines over 300 million Ugandan shillings. Now there's the Najana Kombi faction, the Katonga faction. This is more money, 500 billion shillings, and there's fears and rumors that it could potentially tear up the National Unity Platform. So to speak, some of the junior leaders within the party have come out to advise that you don't focus on this because they are worried that they may be forced in a corner whereby these are 2 big leaders in the party, and so they have to take sides. Do we stand on the Mpuuga side? Do we stand on the Kyagulanyi side? And so how do you intend to rectify that challenge right now?
Yes, it's always about money. We all know, anybody that has followed Uganda's politics for at least 10 years knows that General Museveni uses 2 things, violence and money. If he fails to bend your back using prison, violence, and coercion, he's going to throw money at you. That is how he was able to divide DP, by buying people, including their president. That is how he was able to divide FDC, by bringing dirty money into FDC. It's the same dirty money that has been brought into NUP. And we must be firm and make a moral decision. This is not a situation of standing with Kyagulanyi or standing with Honorable Mpuuga. No, just stand on the side of the truth. Just stand on what is right. Of course, we have among us many politicians who are for sale. They would go where money is. But I can tell you that if standing on the moral side of history, if standing against corruption is what is going to divide this party that I lead, so be it. We treasure the values that brought us together more than we treasure finances. And that is going to be our stand for as long as I am the leader of the National Unity Platform.
Okay, let's talk about those values in details. Which are the strongest that you need and the party needs to stand on right now, mid-term, the elective season?
Our values can be summarized into one word called DRIPS, and that's discipline, reliability, integrity, inclusiveness, patriotism, and service. Now here we are on the most important value among leaders, and that is integrity. Our integrity must always be intact. That is the only thing that we sell. We don't have money. We don't have power. We can only promise people integrity. And if we cannot give that integrity, then we better pack up our bags and laptops and go home, because we wouldn't have anything anymore to tell the population. Yeah.
Okay. You also had a national tour, and people were strongly going behind your back in support of the National Unity Platform as you're opening up offices in different parts of the country. You as a leader, you might be of this mindset with the DRIPS strongly embedded in your mind, but there are those that are starting and have been subscribing to the National Unity Platform since it's opened its doors of democracy. How do you intend to instill these principles down to the wananchi so that it's the same voice that they speak?
Well, we the leaders are supposed to be the custodians of what we believe in. We are supposed to be the examples. A leader sees the way, goes the way, and shows the way. So if we as leaders can no longer hold on to the values that we purport to be leading people to, then we are no longer the leaders worth our name. The moral thing would be to step aside and let others do that, including myself. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the two things that you mentioned. You talked about violence and money being one of the things that are being used by the current regime to shake the tables for the opposition parties. How is this threatening for multi-partisan politics in this country?
Well, it's unfortunate that we are under a military dictatorship, lest and dressed as a democracy. General Museveni knows everything that goes on in that parliament. And he knows the money that's being spent in that parliament exorbitantly, because he knows that he uses that parliament to paint a false image of a democracy. The Speaker of Parliament, Madam Anita Among, is now the modern day Kaihura. Kaihura used to play that role for General Museveni, but now Anita Among is doing that, and is doing that with surgical precision. Now, that is an illegality to begin with, because even according to the law, according to the Supreme Court judgment of the Parliamentary Commission against, was it Mwesige, which ruled through a bill or motion which had to be brought by a member of the executive. Now, in this meeting in particular, there was no member of the executive. It was Anita Among, it was the three commissioners from NRM, and the Honorable Matthias Mpuuga. So it was illegal in itself, you know, probably because it is known that Nabanja and Among have their clashes, and also, you know, Matia Kasaija. That's how it passed. Parliament doesn't know about it, didn't know about it, and it had to know about it. So it becomes corruption.
Okay. We do have another faction. For example, the chairperson of the Massacre National Unity Platform Elders Council, Mr. Charles Mpanga, also, in a statement, he said that he's accusing the party president of acting on falsehoods perpetrated by a clique of individuals that deliberately misrepresent the facts to malign Mpuuga over the selfish interests. And he goes ahead to say that this is belittling and undermining leaders who are perceived to be capable of taking over your leadership when your terms end, according to the revised constitution of the National Unity Platform. Is that the case?
Actually, it's not the case. These are not falsehoods. We are talking about facts that were presented to my deputy president, and he admitted and he apologized. So these are not falsehoods. These are facts. Yeah.
Okay. So, and there are many people who have the school of the thought that Matthias Mpuuga would be the most likely candidate in your next election for the National Unity Platform. So this is one of those ways that he's being mad as dirty or with dirty hands, so that when that time comes, it's one of those cards that is pulled out against him to stand for the party presidency.
But nobody can claim to love Honorable Mpuuga more than me. Okay, I am the one who appointed him deputy president. I am the one who appointed him leader of opposition. I am the one who appointed him to the Parliamentary Commission a few months ago. Does that mean that I don't like him? Or does that mean that I like him? It's only unfortunate that even if it was my own Secretary General or my brother or my friend, we have to do what is right. This is a moral challenge for me. It is painful for me to have to do this, but I have to do what is right because this is what we promised the people. I cannot be seen to cover up for my senior leaders. I mean, I recently, had to suspend Comrade Bijirwa, one of my favorites, because he was caught in a case of gross indiscipline and he accepted and apologized for it, and he was suspended, But the Right Honorable Mpuuga was given the opportunity to honorably resign because he's a senior leader. He's not suspended. He has not resigned yet. I really hope he can look into his moral conscience and do the right thing. And I've said it, and I want to say it today on national TV, that I am confident that Honorable Mpuuga can be rehabilitated and our relationship can come back to normal, because I treasure him, but I treasure the values more. I treasure Uganda more. And this is supposed to communicate to any other leader to know that for us, we don't believe in corruption, we don't believe in impunity, and the only way countries have developed is by stamping out corruption firmly. And we have to lead by example. It's painful, but it's the right thing to do.
Okay. Well, Uganda's constitution gives the president powers to appoint the top leaders. Your constitution also gives the president power to appoint. Now, since we are seeing a lot of, as you have expressed that he's your personal friend, you made the appointment yourself, and with the things that have come out and the scandal presently, it mars and really begs the question the relationship that you have with with you and him. And we have seen the same questions being raised by ministers, the speaker, or you do have the prime ministers who have been appointed, and people have been asking why so and so, what did they do to deserve this and this. But it's simply with the power in the constitution. Perhaps that power is leading to such things. Perhaps if you change that power and made it elective, people to actually elect these leaders, then accountability would be more prominent.
Well, this is not a legal question. This is a moral question. And we must not blur the line. This is a moral question. The law can be arm twisted or even completely ignored and is maintained. I mean, a while ago, we removed Ojara Mapenduzi from a committee after he was used to remove Zake from the commission by Anita Mong. And Anita Mong refused to drop him. And we didn't have anything to do. But at least the population knew that he was not representing us. The same thing can happen. I mean, you've seen in Kayunga, we had all DR forms, and we went to court. But the court, as you know, the entire judicial system is in the pocket of General Museveni. That does not stop us from doing what's right. If the moral authority is what we have, we shall use the moral authority. You understand? Mm-hmm. It is not a matter of legalities. It is a matter of morality. Mm-hmm. And it does not take a professor of law to know right from wrong.
Okay, all right. We have seen the president with the scandals that have been in Parliament. For example, Pasista Muganza, Honorable Pasista Muganza, and there was no response from the president.
Yeah.
Up to now, there's not been response from the president. And speaking on behalf of the people, it begs the prayer: will you be? For how long are you going to be silent on this issue?
Silent on what?
On the Matthias Mpuuga issue.
But we are not silent. We spoke out. We are not silent. We spoke out. We are talking about this matter right now. Mm-hmm. That's why I insist that we are not silent.
Okay. Yeah. Moving forward, 2.5 years left to the next election. This is a continuous vice within our current government, and it's been a growing vice being harnessed by different elements. From your perspective, where you're seated, what do you believe are the things that are actually allowing the growth of corruption to the depth it is in right now in Uganda?
Impunity and making it acceptable. It's very unfortunate that in Uganda corruption was made acceptable. It is not punished. It is rewarded. Mm-hmm. Corruption in Uganda is an exchange mode that, you know, anybody can steal anything for as long as they will ensure that Museveni is in power. That's why Nabanja, Anita Mong, the Vice President, the Minister of Ethics and Integrity, and a whole line of ministers stole iron sheets that were meant for Karamoja. None of them resigned. None of them was, imprisoned. They just, kind of acted it out, and that is all. But they arrested those that protested against that grand theft. That is why I am scared that if we allow that corruption to get into us, then it's going to destroy us. Why? We all agree that whenever huge sums of money exchange hands, there's an agreement, there's a consideration, there's something that is being given in exchange. So it keeps me asking, what did my deputy president give in exchange for this money? It was not gratuity, it was not a salary, it was immoral, it was illegal, it was a secret until a short while ago. It was done almost 2 years ago, but it's just coming out now. Question is, what did he give in exchange? Or what did he promise in exchange? So I am concerned, and the nation is concerned, but I am tasked to speak and ask and questions for the nation, and that's exactly what we are doing. And the same question I will ask anybody that I catch in such a scandal with evidence. I must insist that there are many
that's what I was going
allegations.
To say, that where do we draw the line in accusation falsely or allegedly, and having or digging out evidence so that you are really doing it on evidence-based approach? Because, for example, the FDC, we keep asking ourselves, but where are the traces of this money? Bring the paperwork, bring the exchange files here and there so that people can understand that it's really a thing that is this deep and has evidence to it. So that leaves the National Unity Platform, the other biggest opposition party in the country presently, in a tough spot. of you must have evidence in order to press the buttons that you're pressing?
There are many allegations that have been presented to me. Very many. And some, many of them without evidence, you know. And when something has no evidence, I continue treating it as an allegation until I have evidence. And sometimes evidence has been brought to me, but it has been denied by the accused people, you know. And sometimes that evidence has not been substantial enough. But I must also say that many cases of such nature have come to me in privacy, and therefore there's not been need to bring them to the public. But this is a matter that was raised in the public domain. This is a matter upon which evidence was presented to me. Most importantly, this is the evidence that I presented to my deputy president, to which he admitted and apologized. That is why he was tasked to be the one to set the narrative to the population.
Okay.
Before we set the narrative.
We do have some questions here from people, our audience online. There's someone who's sent in a message and asked, when did you last engage with MPs on parted issues concerning the party? And were they also engaged on this matter of Honorable Matthias Mpuuga before you outrightly came out? Of course, you've mentioned that you spoke to your leadership before you came out to address the meeting that you addressed, but generally on engaging your members of parliament on patent issues concerning the National Unity Platform and the drips that you did mention about, where do you stand right now?
Well, we continuously engage with our leaders at all levels. We engage with the members of parliament, but when I'm not available, they have a leadership. They engage with the leader of opposition. When I appoint a leader of opposition, of course, with confirmation of NEC, but I say I appoint because I propose the names. So I say I because I take full responsibility. So when I, with my party, appoint a leader of opposition, we don't appoint a leader of opposition without power. We give them all the power to run matters on our behalf in parliament.
Okay.
Yes, I engage my members, my leaders at parliament, but, you know, they have a leadership there that constantly takes them. And these are not children to be reminded of our values. It's important to remind them, but I believe there are senior leaders who should instead be reminding their junior leaders about the same values.
Okay. Another question coming through here, and there's asking, why did you distance yourself from the constitutional amendments proposed by the leader of opposition then, Matthias Mpuuga, at the Munyonyo retreat? And what are your plans for elections without amendments?
I will tell you that that matter was not first presented by us. That matter was presented by Norbert Mao. Norbert Mao works for Museveni. You have heard, just like I've heard, that General Museveni is still trying to change the constitution to remove elections, to make sure parliament is the one that is should be electing the president, which is wrong, which would be disenfranchising the people of Uganda. So when Norbert Mao was engaging with our leader of opposition, and this matter was not being substantially discussed by the party, we raised questions. Why do we go into something that we have not substantially discussed, that we don't have a position on? But most importantly, something that we know will most definitely be used. They present as if they're presenting constitutional amendments, and they smuggle in their own things, and that has been the way Museveni does things. You know, when he's amending the constitution to stay in power forever and remove the age limit, he lied to the MPs that he was trying to extend their tenure to 7 years. Of course, he got what he wanted and he used them. But most importantly, even with the messed up laws that we have, if they were respected, we would have a democracy. But they are not respected. You've seen how the military completely takes over the election. That is illegal, but that is what happens. You have seen how opposition leaders are harassed. That is illegal, but it is happening. So even the law, the way it is not respected. So we did not want to be dragged into a narrative that is set by Museveni and not by us.
Okay. Well, it's interesting because one of the people here begs a question and says, are you ready to be replaced in party leadership? But of course, you have to wait. We have to wait out the 2 elective terms.
Yeah.
Then that decision will be made then. It's too early to...
Definitely, yeah. Definitely. We are democratic leaders. I did not come into politics to be another Museveni. No. I came to lead the charge for change.
Okay.
And it does not necessarily mean that it has to be me.
Speaking of change, on the global scene, you've been making some changes through the documentary. You've been awarded Cinema Eye and also Cinema for Peace. Those are the awards that you have bagged so far. There's also the nomination for Oscars. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
How is this propelling the agenda of the National Unity Platform?
It's definitely working very positively for our agenda of change and democracy and freedom in Uganda. You will notice that General Museveni is keeping us on chokehold, not mainly because of what he gets from Uganda. The Museveni government is heavily funded by the American government. The American government gives Museveni up to $1 billion every year. And that is only the US, not the EU, you know. So America has values, democracy, rule of law, human rights, and all that. But, you know, they are dealing with a dictator, either pretending that they don't know or well knowing, but because Museveni is their puppet and, you know, fulfills their agenda and honors their interests. So, with this documentary, we are taking the argument to the US, the EU, and the entire international community to tell them this is exactly what you're sponsoring. I will remind you that once upon a time, Margaret Thatcher, the then UK Prime Minister, called Nelson Mandela a terrorist. And indeed, Nelson Mandela was on the terrorist list for a long time. You know, they did not respect the African struggle in South Africa and all other parts of Africa because they were lied to. Well, the leaders might not have been lied to, but the population, I can guarantee to you that many people in America and the world did not know that Museveni is a dictator, did not know that people get massacred on the street, did not know that Museveni jails opposition leaders, kills people, and rigs elections. So just like that documentary against apartheid came out in America and Europe in 1986, and it changed everything because it is in that year, after the release of that documentary, that the US government was so ashamed of supporting the apartheid government. They changed their policy, they cut their aid from the apartheid government, and ultimately the apartheid government fell. Nelson Mandela got released from jail, and the rest is history. We strongly believe that after the maximum exposure of the Museveni atrocities to the population of the United States of America and the EU, then America, the administration in Washington, will have no option but to do the right thing, because they will be held to account by the population, by their voters. They will have to do the right thing, and that is cutting aid from Museveni and cutting ties until Museveni does the right thing. Now imagine a situation where Museveni can no longer get the $1 billion that he gets from America. Imagine a situation where the EU does not give tear gas or guns or aid to General Museveni. That would mark the end of Museveni and the beginning of freedom in Uganda. So that's how important that documentary is. I'm very glad that that documentary was well received internationally. It has won numerous awards, including the prestigious Cinema Eye Award and the amazing, Cinema for Peace Award, which we received. together with the Pope Francis, Hillary Clinton, Ban Ki-moon, former Secretary General of UN, and others. And we hope it is continuously going to, show our plight and to hold leaders accountable, not only those present ones, but those in the past. I will also conclude on that matter by saying that the West and the whole world it had come to shape an understanding on Idi Amin based on films and books. Films which were even fictional, and books that were even accounts of singular individuals. But this is a documentary where everything was not acted but filmed. So don't joke with an artist. That is how effective art can do. It can change things.
Also, in closing, we wanted to ask you, what do you believe should be Uganda's priorities as we stand today? We are in the budgetary season, planning for the next financial year. And from where you're seated, with all the traversing that you've been doing globally, and from what you've been exposed to, what do you believe should be Uganda's priorities now?
Uganda's priorities. I guess so. Of course, delivering services, desperately needed services to our people, ensuring that people have their rights and freedoms. That's very, very necessary. We are in a time where before we even talk about the economy of the country, we're talking about a matter of life. It's just this morning that a councillor called Sharon Kemigisha was dumped at our offices after almost 10 days of being kidnapped. She's yet to tell us where she has been and who kidnapped her. But this has been happening. Our people are abducted by the regime, later on presented in military courts, or dumped like that, just like Sharon Kemigisha. So for us, the life of our people is primary and everything else is secondary. Let's
talk about the impacts of human rights violations and corruption on good governance, especially for a country like Uganda, who 60 years later should be speaking a different story.
Well, 60 years later, we should be speaking a different story. But almost 40 years have been taken over by gun rule. Our progress was hijacked by Museveni. This guy has been the problem of Uganda since the 60s. He started the armed resistance against Idi Amin. Yes, our parents were convinced that he was doing it for the right reasons until 60 years later, now when we know, maybe 50 years later, when we know that the guy was just a cunning misrepresenter. He was a cunning conman. Look where we are now. The same person that promised fundamental change, has caused change from bad to worse. So we believe that we can only go past this if we stop military rule, if we go back to democracy, if we go back to the rule of law, if we respect human rights. Because Museveni does not know the rule of law. I mean, he never came to power through the law. No, he came to power through murder, through stealing, through lying, and that is how he has maintained power, through stealing, through lying, and through killing. That has to stop for Uganda to go past here.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Honorable Robert Chagulanyi. We would like to hear your closing remarks. In these remaining 2.5 years, how is the National Unity Platform strategizing and repositioning themselves for the next elections?
Thank you. We are not focusing on the next election. And yet, if we've not been able to remove the Museveni regime by 2026, we would have no option but also use that democratic tool, because we are using every means to our disposal, every moral and constitutional means on our disposal to remove the regime. So that's what we've been at as the NUP. Our strategy is to bring our people together. When we were going into elections 2021, there are so many people that came to us because they saw we had the support of the people. Among them, and Honorable Mpuuga said it many times, it was like throwing a small whole net and we collected all manner of creatures that are under the water. We need to sort ourselves, but the public will help us to sort ourselves. But the marking scheme are our values. Unfortunately, this is going to drop the big, the small, the young, the old, and all that. But ultimately, we have to have a team that presents our values. I must close by telling the population that this is not a political issue. It is completely a moral issue. It is not, I know that many politicians, especially in such a critical time, are going to jump in to drive their political agendas. There are many people that this one wants to run against this one wants to become MP, this one councillor, this one mayor, so they're going to jump onto this. This is not a political issue. It is not a fight for positions. It is a fight for the soul of the National Unity Platform. If we are not who we are, if we cannot prove that we are who we say we are, if we cannot prove that we lose corruption, that we hate corruption, that we can drop anything for corruption, that we can punish anybody for corruption, then we are not worth claiming that we want to lead people in a new Uganda.
All right. Finally, speaking of rooting out corruption, yes, we're not going to wait for scandals. We're not going to wait for exhibitions to come out to, give evidence-based issues on corruption. So it begs the question, as the National Unity Platform, how can you actually deal with corruption internally? What mechanisms can you adopt to deal with corruption internally to avoid, things getting out of hand as they are getting out of hand in the case of Honorable Matthias Mpuuga?
First, let us be moral. Let each one of us be a custodian or be a corruption police. Each one of us. And I want to encourage my fellow leaders to remember that we are not angels. However, when we falter, we should have the decency to come clean and move forward. Come clean, do the right thing, and move forward. Let us emulate what other leaders do. I mean, Boris Johnson, the UK Prime Minister, he only violated COVID regulations and he resigned. He's a respectable person. We must develop that culture because it's a good culture. It's a dignified culture. It will make people trust us more. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Honorable Robert.
Thank you very much for having me. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay. We await to see what comes out of Sharon Kemgisha and what she'll give us an account of the close to 10 days she has been missing and her captors and exactly what transpired there. Of course, that speaks into the continuous human rights violations that we're seeing across the country, and it continues to be one of the strong agendas for the leader of opposition in Parliament, making sure that they can account for every single human being, Ugandan, that has gone missing within this time frame of the 11th Parliament. But also, the Honourable here has spoken about the principles that continue to guide politics, and one should be discipline. The other one is reliancy. Integrity is very key and crucial, and it is what they're simply begging of the Honourable Matthias Mpuuga. Patriotism, having country at heart and in your blood first, over your own intentions and selfishness and your own desires. You should put country over other things. And then, of course, service is the other thing that they stand for. Service to the people, service by the people, and service with the people. So those four principles are the principles that are automatically guiding what we have this morning as the conversation that we've been having with the Honourable Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu. Well, thank you so much, and I trust that that has informed what next. The question of what next, he has also informed us that they're going to be having a meeting, executive meeting, that is going to be sitting and will guide thereafter if the Honourable Matthias Mpuuga does not not respond to the three conditions that he was given. One, to return that money, for which he says he has not received. And then two, apologize to Ugandans for having taken that money, which is being regarded as corruption. And then, of course, three, stepping down from the commission